Hey guys, what is up and welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel if you're new. Don't forget to hit that big red subscribe button and hit the bell icon and set your notifications to all, that way you never miss a future upload. Another day, another drama, and today we're going to be talking about the Jeffree Star accusations that he paid off Gage Arthur $45,000 and also had him sign an NDA agreement not to talk about anything anymore in the future. Well, if you haven't seen my previous video titled Jeffree Star Hush Money Exposed, I will link that in a card up over here as well as down in the description box down below, so definitely make sure you go and check that out as well. Alright, let's go ahead and get on into it. Now, if you have seen my previous video, or if you watched my live video from the other night, I talked about like, hey, why are you not giving us the full document? Why are you only giving us part of the document? Well, apparently my prayers have been answered, or maybe my nightmares have been answered, because the full document was actually released. Thankfully, it was not a huge, complicated document, but it was still more than my little brain likes to read out. So unfortunately, I did get the chance to read it, and I'm actually going to read it out for you in this video so you guys know what was in that full document as well. And after I read out the document for you, I will also share what I believe that the document means and what I'm understanding from it, so stay tuned to the end of the video to hear my opinion on what I just read. Alright, let's go ahead and get on into this document. The document reads, Confidential Settlement Agreement. This confidential settlement agreement, the agreement, dated September 25th, 2020, the effective date, is made and entered into by Andrew Arthur, Mr. Arthur, and Jeffree Star, Mr. Star. Mr. Arthur and Mr. Star may be referred to collectively as the parties. Mr. Arthur and Mr. Star may be referred to individually as a party, for the consideration and mutual promises hereinafter stated. Whereas, Mr. Arthur and others provided certain statements to Business Insider in connection with the planned story about Mr. Star. Whereas, in connection with the statements made by Mr. Arthur and others, Business Insider has accused Mr. Star of misconduct, individuals, throwing at an individual, and sending crude photographs. Whereas, Mr. Star denies all these allegations made against him. However, the mere publication of such serious allegations, no matter how false, could have a negative effect on someone with Mr. Star's large public following, company, and employees. Whereas, after talking to more friends and thinking back over the events that occurred more than 10 years ago, Mr. Arthur recognizes that he was not remembering things correctly, may have misinterpreted things, and that his statements to Business Insider and those made by others within his circle are not reliable or correct, and therefore has agreed to retract his communications to Business Insider and no longer serve as a source for any story about Mr. Star. Whereas, in an effort to resolve the dispute, the parties agreed to a confidential term sheet dated September 23, 2020, which sets out the terms of the settlement enumerated below. Whereas, on September 23, 2020, Mr. Arthur emailed Kat Tenbar to Business Insider, retracting his communications, explaining that he misremembered and misinterpreted things, and informing Ms. Tenbarge that Business Insider does not have the authority to publish anything he discussed with her. Whereas, immediately after sending the above email to Ms. Tenbarge, Mr. Arthur sent a text message to Ms. Tenbarge as follows: "Please confirm that you received my email." Whereas, without admitting any facts or liability, the parties now desire to fully and finally resolve the dispute amicably on the terms and conditions set forth in this agreement. Whereas, the parties expressly agree that the term sheet previously exchanged between them, this agreement, and the terms of the settlement shall forever remain confidential and shall not be disclosed to any person or entity that is not a party to this agreement for any reason, except as required by law or per court order. Now, therefore, in consideration of the mutual agreement and covenants contained herein, the parties hereby agree as follows. 1. Communications to Business Insider. Mr. Arthur shall not engage in any further written or telephone communications with Ms. Tenbarge or anyone else at Business Insider unless first discussed and agreed with Mr. Star or his representatives. 2. Settlement payment. A. Within 2 business days of signing this agreement, Mr. Arthur shall be paid $25,000. B. If Business Insider does not publish the article about Mr. Star within 3 months of the effective date, Mr. Arthur shall receive an additional $25,000. C. Person A and Person B have also retracted their statements to Business Insider. Mr. Arthur shall receive an additional $10,000 for contacting each of Person A and Person B for a total of an additional $20,000. 3. Cooperation. A. If Business Insider or others continue to make efforts to investigate the claims relating to Mr. Arthur's allegations against Mr. Star, Mr. Arthur agrees to cooperate with Mr. Star in responding to those inquiries in a manner to be discussed and agreed to between the parties. B. If Business Insider nonetheless publishes the story about Mr. Star, Mr. Arthur will issue a public statement in a manner to be discussed and agreed between the parties, expressing that Business Insider did not have the authority to make or publish any statements attributing to Mr. Arthur, and that he does not agree with them or believe them to be true, and will otherwise cooperate with Mr. Star in responding to the published allegations. C. Further, because Mr. Arthur believes that all postings about Mr. Starr on StickyDrama.com that reference Mr. Arthur are false and untrue, Mr. Arthur further agrees to make reasonable efforts to encourage Christopher Stone to remove such postings from StickyDrama.com. 4. Confidentiality and non-disclosure. The parties agree that the discussions and negotiations surrounding the term sheet in this agreement are in furtherance of the settlement discussions. Accordingly, all communications relating to the term sheet, this agreement, and the settlement, and any and all drafts of the term sheet and agreement are entitled to the protections of Rule 408 of the Federal Rules of Evidence and State Law Equivalents, as well as any other applicable statutes or doctrines protecting the use or disclosure of confidential information in exchange for the context of the settlement discussions. The parties agree that this agreement, its terms and conditions, and all communications related thereto, including the reasons for the parties entering into the term sheet in this agreement, collectively, confidential information, shall be maintained in strict confidence, and that they and their counsel, representatives, agents, or anyone acting, directly or indirectly, on their behalf shall not disclose, discuss, or communicate in any manner whatsoever the confidential information to any person or entity that is not a party to this agreement for any reason, except as required by court order or process of law. Any unauthorized disclosure of any confidential information by Mr. Arthur shall be deemed as a breach of this agreement in an amount equal to the total amount paid under paragraph 2 above per each violation. For the avoidance of doubt, confidentiality is essential to this agreement, and Mr. Arthur will forfeit in return all monies received pursuant to paragraph 2 above, should he breach this paragraph 4. 5. Future statements. Mr. Arthur shall not repeat any of the allegations made to Business Insider, or any other publication at any time in the future. Mr. Arthur shall not cooperate with Business Insider or any other publication on any story about Mr. Starr any time in the future. If Mr. Arthur does so, he will be liable for Mr. Starr for a sum of $50,000 per publication. 6. Release and waiver of rights under Section 1542 and equivalents. The parties warrant, represent, and agree that they are fully aware of California Civil Code Section 1542, which provides as follows. Section 1542, General Release. Extent. A general release does not extend to claims that the creator or releasing party does not know or suspect to exist in his or her favor at the time of executing the release, and that, if known by him or her, would have materially affected his or her settlement with the debtor or released party. The parties hereby waive or relinquish every right or benefit that they have or might have under Section 1542 to the full extent that they may lawfully waive such right or benefit with regard to any disputes between them. In connection with such waiver and relinquishment, the parties acknowledge that they are aware that they might later discover facts in addition to or different from those which they know now or believe not to be true, but that it is under their intention hereby fully, finally, and forever to settle and release all matters, known or unknown, suspected or unsuspected, which now exist, might exist, or previously existed between the parties. This agreement is intended to be and is final and binding, regardless of any claims or misrepresentation, concealment of fact, or mistake of law or fact, and shall be and remain in effect in full and complete release of all such matters, notwithstanding the discovery or existence of any additional or different claims or facts relative thereto. 7. Governing law and dispute resolution. The parties' obligations and all claims relating to the relationship between the parties, including all claims in tort, contact, at law, or in equity, will be governed by the laws of the state of California, without regard to the conflicts of law of principles. In the event of any dispute concerning the validity, interpretation, enforcement, or breach of this agreement, or otherwise arising out of this agreement, the dispute shall be resolved by a confidential arbitration in Los Angeles, California, in accordance with the Federal Arbitration Act and the then existing rules of JAMS. The parties intend this arbitration provision to be valid, enforceable, irrevocable, and construed as broadly as possible. The prevailing party shall be entitled to recover reasonable fees and costs for any arbitration of a dispute under this Section 7. 8. Headings. The underlined headings contained in this agreement are for convenience of reference only, and shall not be deemed to be a part of this agreement, and shall not be referenced in connection with the construction or interpretation of this agreement. 9. Counterparts. The parties may execute this agreement in any number of counterparts, each of which constitutes an original, and all of which collectively constitute only one agreement. 10. No presumption against drafting party. Each party acknowledges and agrees that any rule of law or legal decision that would require interpretation of any claimed ambiguities in this agreement against the drafting party has no application and is expressly waived. 11. No admission of liability. Neither the entering of this agreement nor any provisions hereof shall be deemed as an admission by any party of any liability or wrongdoing whatsoever. 12. Authority. Each party represents and warrants that it has full power and authority to enter into and perform this agreement, and that the persons signing this agreement on behalf of each party have been properly authorized and empowered to enter into this agreement. Each party further acknowledges that it has read this agreement, understands it, and agrees to be bound by it. 13. Modification. This agreement can be modified only by written agreement duly signed by the persons authorized to sign agreements on behalf of the parties. 14. Entire agreement. This agreement contains the entire agreement of the parties. No other agreement, statement, or promise made on or before the date of this agreement will be binding on the parties. Remainder of page intentionally left blank. And then on the final page of the document, you can see it says, accepted this 25th day of September 2020, signed by Andrew Arthur. Accepted this 25th day of September 2020, signed by Jeffree Star. And then in this screenshot here over on Twitter, I saw that True Sleuth shared an image of Jeffree Star's signature that has been on some of his products. So I put that image on top of this image of the actual document so you can see that the similarities between Jeffree Star's signature on the document and his known signature on his products are very similar. So from what I'm understanding from this document, Jeffree Star is basically saying, I'm not admitting to any wrongdoing, but I don't want this information to be out into the public because any information like this that is out into the public could damage my brand, hurt my business, and hurt my employees. So instead of trying to take you to court and to battle this, I'm just going to pay you off to not talk about this to Business Insider anymore or to any other publication. So that way, if anybody else does contact you, you have to contact me and say, hey, they want a statement. Should I release a statement? If so, basically tell me what to say or tell me, hey, no, I'm not going to talk about that. They have to agree on a statement to release together, or he's not allowed to talk about anything related to Jeffree Star and the allegations that he has made about Jeffree Star in the past. And also, if any of this information about this agreement does get leaked, you're going to have to pay me back the money that I paid you. And then on top of that, you will also be responsible for paying me back more money if it was leaked to more than just one person. That's what I'm understanding from the document as well. It to me seems like Jeffree Star is trying to save his image basically by saying, I'm not going to agree to anything, but I will just pay you out so I don't have to deal with it. It kind of reminds me of the situation that happened with Michael Jackson back in the day, where he went to court, he ended up paying people out after that because they brought up more allegations against him, and he would just settle things out of court instead of having to go back to court again. And also most recently with the Trump and Stormy Daniels situation, where he paid her off with an NDA saying, hey, do not talk about having an affair with me. If you do, then you're going to have to pay me back this money that I'm giving you. So that's what I'm understanding from this entire situation. That's my interpretation of the entire situation, but I'd love to know what you guys think down in the comments below. If you like this video, make sure you go ahead and hit that like button. Also, if you're new to my channel, make sure you hit that big red subscribe button and hit the bell icon and set your notifications to all. That way you never miss a future upload. All right, that's everything for today, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!